think I said it was huge.
Flat.
The flat.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Right.
the flat.
I'm getting confused. Or explore the screen. Explore the
scheme.
scheme.
Hi guys, welcome back to another video of mine, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Now if you are new, my name is Elise and this is my boyfriend Sean. So on my channel we have done videos before where we spoke about buying a new build, so do check out those videos. What we noticed was a common theme on the house videos is a lot of questions about shared ownership. So the house we are currently living in is a new build, just in case you guys are wondering. Before we were living together, Sean did have a flat near London and he was part of the shared ownership scheme. So we just thought we would do a video and kind of touch base on some of the questions that we've had, because we've had quite a few, haven't we, from other people.
Yeah, of interest.
I still don't really understand the full ins and outs. So yeah, why was it that you decided to get into shared ownership? Was it just kind of all you could afford to do?
I'd arrived to it basically, so I was, you know, young, free, single, best days of my life, living in London.
Why don't you drop the single bit in?
I don't know, it's just relevant to the story.
Yeah.
So saved a lot of money, thought I was at a stage where I was ready to buy. Obviously you don't quite know what you're ready to buy, you don't know how much money you need. What I had, I think I found a studio apartment above a crack den in Croydon. I think that was about my limit. So when I'm searching on properties, it does lull you in. So, you know, my budget might have been, I think my budget was like 180,000 at the time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden some real nice properties were coming up. So I went to a mortgage advisor, found out how much money I could borrow, and then started plugging that amount into the Rightmove or the search engines and
to see what could come up.
Yeah, and you know, it would strike me that quite a lot, there was some real nice properties, like 2-3 bed flats in really nice areas coming up for my price range, which didn't make too much sense. And it's almost like clickbait. You then click into it, so the property might be worth 180 grand, I think it was my budget. So you click into it and it says 180 grand, but this is, you know, only worth 30% of the property, and that's when it.
And actually, I think when we were looking for this house, I did see quite a lot of properties that obviously come up, and you're like, no way in hell can I afford that.
Yeah, that's what
but the reality of it is, you're not affording that. You're owning part of it with the government, which, yeah, like you said, it does lure you in with the pictures and stuff that you see online. You're like, that's really nice. Wow, that's a beautiful place. Yeah, why can I afford that?
You know, it's just got me thinking. You know, if I could get a terrible place really cheap in an absolute, you know, dive.
So yeah.
It was either take a property in a really bad area or, you know, explore shared ownership, and that's what I got looking into it. And I thought, you know, you're weighing up two sides, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to get into a shared ownership. There are negatives to it, but I ended up being in a 2-bed, 2-bathroom flat in a, you know, nice-ish area compared to what I would have before. So, you know, I would definitely recommend it. But it came up just from that really, and I explored it from there. I didn't know what it was beforehand, so it's not like I went into it looking for shared ownership property. It was just the one, you know, the properties that
it's just what came up. And again, it's a really good stepping stone to get you on the property ladder, and once you're kind of on it, that's kind of the hardest thing, is getting on the property ladder. So in terms of the government owning it, does that vary on the amount you put down, or is that just like it's a set percentage regardless?
No, so it depends. So originally they were offering 25% of this property, because the person I was buying it from had 25%. But I said to them at the time, I'd rather own more if I can.
Yeah.
So they calculated how much I could get based on my salary, and it came out at 55%.
Yeah.
So in the end, that's what we went for. So I owned 55% of the flat.
So every single month then you'll pay like a mortgage, and then you'll also pay a rent, and that rent goes to the government because it's their building.
It goes to the local authority. So if you want the exact numbers, the flat, when I bought it, the flat was worth 250 grand. So I had...
For a flat?
Yeah, 2-bed flat, and this was in Hawley. The flat was worth 250,000. I am cheating, I jotted it down here. And I had a 55% share. So my share was worth 137,500. So the deposit for the mortgage was 10% of that. So my deposit was 13,750. So you don't pay your deposit on the whole thing.
Okay.
But obviously if you're...
It works out alright, doesn't it?
Yeah, it works out good. But you can borrow much less because you have this massive outgoing of rent. So you pay your mortgage, which I think my mortgage was £480 or something, 450 quid, something along the lines of that. And I also paid £300 rent. So if I was just getting a normal property, I wouldn't have that £300 rent. I could borrow much more. So I think it was, I could borrow 180,000 for a normal property and 140,000 I think it was for the shared ownership. And that goes to the stamp duty as well. So the stamp duty I paid is only on your share, so not on the whole 250.
Oh, okay.
So at the time there was no schemes, but you only just creep into it, so I didn't pay much stamp duty at all. And my solicitor fees were about £1,800.
When you go into shared ownership, are you allowed to still do the Help to Buy ISA, or is that not available because you're doing the shared ownership scheme?
I don't know. I think they're two different things. I think
Okay.
one's like a saving pot.
Yeah, I
one's a
just wonder
government
because
scheme.
it's like government and government. I wonder if you're not allowed
Yeah,
to do
I'm not so
like
sure.
one or the other.
I think you're allowed to do both, but you're only allowed to do this scheme if you've like beforehand. So you can't get a shared ownership. You can't get a shared ownership property and then start going into the
Help to Buy,
ISA.
yeah, because
but
you've
you
already
could do
owned a
it
property.
beforehand.
Yeah, I just wonder if you could go into a shared ownership scheme with the Help to Buy ISA as
Yeah,
well,
I'm
as
pretty
a
sure you
helping
can. I'll
hand,
double
maybe.
check, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. But
Cancel out.
the money that we earned from the property, when I had it for just under 3 years, and when I sold it for 30 grand more. So it went for 280 it went for, and I bought it for 250. So I got 55% of that. So when we moved into this place, we had my savings, we had Elisa's savings, and then we had the shared ownership money that was made from the flat. It was basically probably the biggest pot, wasn't it?
So
Yeah,
it was for us, definitely.
So whatever profit the place makes, you get 55%.
So in terms of like your monthly costs then, because we own the full building, it's down to us to pay it. So because the government owns a percentage of the building then, are they expected to pay like a 45%, if that's the amount they own, towards your bills, towards anything like that?
And that's where it becomes a bit of a kick in the teeth, because the bills in the flat really do add up. So you've got, so my mortgage was
anything.
No, my mortgage was nearly 500. My rent was 350. The council tax was 120. They don't pay anything towards that. The maintenance fee for the building was 120. They didn't pay anything towards that.
Own a percentage of the building and they get that percentage of the equity back, but they help you out in no way, shape, or form.
So if a war, if something natural broke and it wasn't covered under insurance or whatever, and you had to fix it, like general wear and tear,
it's
wouldn't
fully
contribute.
your
It's
responsibility to pay.
Yeah.
In terms of like for us, for example, we could rent out a room here in the house. Are you able to do that under shared ownership because you don't own the full building? Like, do you need to have like permission to rent out a room?
So you really have to check with your local authority, because it's probably a shady area. You probably could get away with it if you don't offer any contracts, so there's no security for you.
You wouldn't be able to, but there might be some clause
in
your contract.
It's like a sublet, isn't it?
I don't know.
So just double check.
Okay, so when you first move into your shared ownership, you get given like a base percentage, 55% or whatever. Are you then, for example, you get a promotion at work and you start earning more money, are you then able to say, hiya, can I pay a little bit more towards my property and get a higher percentage so I own 75% of the building?
Yeah, so it's called staircasing, but it's almost like you're buying a part of a property again, so you have to go through again quite a few hoops. I always intended to staircase more, so what I got a floating mortgage at that point. We've got a 2-year fixed mortgage. A lot of people do it to cement their interest rate in, but I got a floating one which is easy to get out of. So if I knew, if it just arrived and I got a bit of a pay rise, I could get more. You borrow more on the mortgage and you take a 70% share, but you need to get your solicitors again because they need to go through the process, and then you have to pay the extra stamp duty. So it's not it's not an easy process.
And it's not a cheap process if you're having to pay, I'm assuming, fees for all of that.
Well, it's
like starting it all again, isn't it? So I guess the answer to that would be then, as much as you can possibly afford to own, try and do that at the beginning. When you were looking for houses, did you find there was less option because not every building is a shared ownership, or is it the case of every house has the possibility to be shared ownership?
No, I think it had to have started when the scheme started. So you're not going to find a shared ownership property in a 1930s detached bungalow.
The good thing about Sean having to sell, yes, there was a few more hoops to jump through, or you might find that you've got less interest because there's not as many people doing the shared ownership scheme as there are people just trying to buy like a normal house. But the benefit to that is they do have to have checks run on them to check that they're eligible for shared ownership. By doing that, they're not going to go and do that if they're not a serious buyer. So that's the one benefit you have, I think, when you look to sell that on.
I may as well go and look at 20 and see which ones I like. But shared ownership is different because they have to apply for the scheme first.
Yeah.
So with the local authority, they got to send them all their pay slips, their mortgage.
Yeah, so you might find you save yourself so much more time with that, because you do get people like Sean just said, like, want to just have a nose around a 300 grand house and be like, oh, okay, what can I afford in this area? But actually, with the shared ownership scheme, you have to have all those checks first before you even get your foot through the door.
I mean, there are a lot of difficult. It is annoying selling a shared ownership property. We'll get to that. However, I went from putting it on the market to 3 weeks later, I had one day where 5 people come and viewed it.
Yeah.
And it's first come, first served, because they're all on equal parting, so you can't overbid someone else in shared ownership.
Because it is a set amount.
So that was it, 3 weeks, and then they decided they wanted it, and that ended up being the person that I sold to.
Yeah.
But with regards to the difficulty of selling, the local authority have a vested interest. So if we were to sell this house, for example, the estate agent would just come around and he'd just put a finger in the air and say, you know, based on the area, based on what I think, here's the value of the property. And then someone would come and, you know, they might bid less, and we might say, okay, we might take that, we might not. And then someone else might come in and say, look, I know you've got a bid on your property, but I absolutely love it. I want to bid 50 grand more because I want it. With shared ownership, so when he came back and said it was 285,000 to sell it, that was it. So if if the Queen then come in and said, look, I want this as one of my royal bathrooms, I want to buy this for $1 million, there's nothing anyone could do.
So in terms of like how you go about getting the shared ownership to see if you're eligible for it, the application process, is it just a case of Googling shared ownership scheme, local area?
So you have to fit certain criteria, and again, you know, this was nearly 5 years ago I started doing this, but I think at the time, you know, the household cannot be on more than, I think it was 70 grand. You can't be able to afford the property, so you can't just take the shared ownership for the crack, effectively. So it has to be beneficial to you. And also there are certain groups of people who do get forwarded above you. So, you know, if you were, what's it called, but like a key worker, if you were a key worker, you do get a bit of preferential treatment at the time. And you have to work or live in the area beforehand. One thing to bear in mind is mortgages. It doesn't just work. You can't just get like 160 grand mortgage and hope it counts for shared ownership. It doesn't work like that, so you have to get a special mortgage. So I would recommend going for a broker. They can sort you through it.
Yeah, they'll probably have a lot more information as well on it, wouldn't they? So if the shared ownership scheme was so wonderful, why did you decide to sell?
Well, you know, life is a learning process. You make mistakes, don't you? Because we met and then moved down here. I had to get rid of my beautiful flat.
Beautiful flat, but opposite a very loud pub.
Tavern, what pub?
So would you do a shared ownership again? If we had a child and they were moving out and they couldn't afford to get a property, you would recommend it to them?
Yeah, definitely.
There you go then, guys.
Brilliant scheme, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it is great. I think it's a perfect thing to get you on the property ladder. There's lots of information and requirements and criteria to it. Obviously just have a little look on Google and see if it's something that you're eligible for. Well guys, that was everything on shared ownership that kind of we know about. I say we, mostly Sean knows about, but we hope it's answered some questions of yours. And if you are someone that likes watching house videos, I have plenty of those videos on my channel, so definitely do go check them out. If you like the video, then do think about hitting the thumbs up and hit subscribe so you can be notified of our beautiful mugs presenting on your screen.
Fine.
Rocking up.
Yeah, do.
That'll do. We'll catch you in the next video very soon.